I just finished Doom 2016, which means it's time to sit down and give my full review of the game. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. Doom 2016 obviously came out in 2016, developed by id under the Bethesda banner at the time. I really enjoyed this game. I'm typically not one to play a lot of different shooters, especially ones that are fast-paced. They make me feel kind of old, but I had a lot of fun with this game. Before I get started, some boring stuff real quick. I played this game on Xbox Series X through Xbox GamePass, and I played the entire game on the Ultra Violence difficulty. I did tinker with some of the settings a little bit. I changed the X sensitivity from 40 to 55, and then I decreased the look smoothing from 90 to 50, and then I increased the field of view from whatever the default was to the max, and it took me about 26 hours to get through the entire game. So let's get started with the things that I liked. Having this being my first Doom game, I didn't really know what to expect, so right off the bat, I really liked that as the Doom guy, as the Doom Slayer, you feel very powerful, that you're able to, you're given these different weapons, but you're able to like run over to an enemy over here and like rip his throat out and then shoot a guy over there and like do all kinds of cool stuff that a lot of games don't really give you the freedom. I also liked that the movement is so quick, and when I was having trouble maneuvering, I did feel like it was a problem with me and not a problem that the game was too like sluggish, because the game is very snappy. The general combat is very exhilarating and fast paced, and you always had to be like looking around you, looking up, looking down, looking everywhere just to make sure that no enemies were going to pop out and try to get you or anything like that. And it added a sense of, I don't know, it added a sense of like heightened adrenaline to the game, not really knowing where enemies were going to be coming from. The next positive that I wanted to talk about is the weapon variety and the enemy variety. So you start out the game with like a basic shotgun, and then throughout the levels you find different guns. My favorite gun, I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was basically like a machine gun that I put a scope on, and then later on I would alternate between the machine gun and sort of like a rocket launcher that would have like these homing rockets, which I found to be really fun. But those were my guns that pretty much carried me throughout the game. But the weapon variety was a lot of fun, that for the most part you were able to play the game in a way that you wanted to. And I also liked, though, that the this could have been a me problem, that I just wasn't landing a lot of my shots, but ammo was scarce enough that once you ran out of ammo for the guns that you really liked, you kind of had to start using one of the ones you didn't like, which is actually how the rocket launcher became one of my favorite guns, just because using it because I had to. And then with the enemies, it seemed like pretty much any time that you are given a new enemy type, you were pretty quickly given a new weapon or something as well. One of the things I liked about the enemy variety was that once you started finding the stronger enemies, some of the weaker enemies would still be in there too. So it would be like, oh, here's a whole bunch of little imps, and then this big flying guy, and then whatever. It wasn't just like, okay, now we're going to give you this gun that's helpful with these enemies, and then these are like the only enemies you see anymore. And I found that kind of stuff to be refreshing. The next thing that I wrote down was just satisfying. While we're on positives, I have to mention the exploration, I guess. The level design and the exploration, it's like every level has its own map. It's not a linear. It can be a linear shooter in that it's pretty clear like where you have to go and what you have to do. However, there's so much extra space that you can explore, and then you're rewarded for that exploration by being able to upgrade your gear or armor or your guns. And I found the exploration and the upgrade system to be very satisfying as well. Another thing that I actually came to enjoy was the different challenges that are sprinkled through the levels. You would find this, like, floating rock with a symbol on it, and you would go through like a portal and it would say like, okay, using this gun with these upgrades, kill this many enemies in this amount of time. Or it'll say like, okay, you have 4 seconds to do this, but every time you perform this action, 2 or 3 seconds gets added onto the timer. Or it'll be like, kill this many enemies in this amount of time without taking any damage. I found that those challenges to be rather fun because it forced you to play the game in a way that might be counterintuitive to you, which in turn kind of opened up my eyes at the different possibilities when I would return back to the main level. And I found all that to be so enjoyable. It might seem like I've talked about the whole game, but I do have a couple things to mention. I have one mixed thing and a couple negatives to talk about. For mixed, the only thing that I had written down is the difficulty. There's a few reasons that this isn't mixed. One is that I did make the choice to play it on the ultra violence difficulty, which I think would be considered like hard. There were some points where I felt like the game was trying to make itself harder, and it didn't really seem to know how. It would end up putting, if it's like, oh, this part needs to be hard, instead of actually making it like, instead of actually coming up with a creative way to make it difficult, it would be like, we're going to put you in this tiny space with a giant enemy, or like 2 enemies that are each going to be charging at you, or something like that. And I found that kind of stuff to be kind of annoying. However, I will say that even when I felt like the game did spike in difficulty, I always found the satisfaction of triumphing over the enemies to be much more rewarding, which all of that together is why the difficulty kind of ends up in mixed for me. And unfortunately, that does get us to the negative part of the review. My biggest negative was probably the long checkpoints. This is kind of nitpicky, but it is kind of something that when I think about replaying the game, I'm going to be like, eh. And so what I mean by that is that you'll go into a room and you'll kill all the enemies. And then some more enemies will run into the room and you'll kill all those enemies. And then some more enemies will run into the room, kill all those enemies. And then you'll like go down a hallway and you'll kill some guys throughout the hallway. And then you'll go into another room and you'll have to fight some guys in that room. And then you'll get a checkpoint. And it's like, I feel like, give me a checkpoint when I clear all the enemies, like between the different waves, which I know would severely lower the difficulty a little bit. Which is why I'm saying that this is kind of nitpicky. It's like, I don't really know what the good solution would be. And I would say that negative, the long checkpoint thing, can very easily just be kind of swept under the rug. The 2 big negatives for me, one of them was that there was quite a bit of clipping. A few different times I put myself between like a wall and like a moving platform or something, seeing if I would like get crushed and like die, but every single time it would just like push me into the wall. That was pretty noticeable for me. And then another negative for me is that I had a fair number of crashes, couple of which were combined with long checkpoints, and that it's like I'm almost to the end of a 2-phase boss battle, and then the game just freezes up and nothing will happen, and so I have to quit the game and start over. And those I found to be rather annoying, especially if it happened when I felt like I was doing pretty well in the game, because you know, when you're struggling to get past a certain enemy or level or something, it's every single time it's like, okay, this is the one, and then it crashes and it's like, I would have had it if it didn't crash. And I think that's it. That's all I have to say about Doom 2016. Make sure you play this game. It's available on Xbox Game Pass and PS Plus Extra, and super cheap on the PlayStation sale right now that goes on through the 4th of July. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Before you leave, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comment section what you think about Doom 2016. And I guess that's it. Thank you for watching.